Welcome to a recap for Godforged, episodes 51 to 68. I'll be basically going through each of those episodes and talking about all the significant, important moments to get you up to date with the show. So, to begin, episode 51 takes place in the second half of the Battle for Cloud's Break. We see Maria pull back all of her forces and all the civilians to the central kind of keep area, while Steingirder, the Valkyrie, is attempting to finish her ritual. The group are battling a great bone colossus, held together by thousands upon thousands of worms, Uroth's spawn. As they fight the creature, Timothy banishes it, sending it elsewhere for now, but brings it back just in time for the ritual's completion, just when hope is nearly lost. Steingirder breaks apart, going into the sky, creating a permanent daylight all around Steep Glen. And radiant light bursts forward from her, ridding the entirety of Steep Glen from the massive undead invasion currently underhand. But just in time, Timothy brings back the creature so it's hit by the full brunt of the radiant damage, causing portions of its bone to break apart and leaving it vulnerable for them to kill it. Episode 52 continues that fight, with the party defeating the Bone Colossus in the center of Steep Glen, with the help of some of their allies. The group gathers together and pays respect at a funeral to all those who fell in Steep Glen, before heading out toward Pinewood, the village in which Casel resides. Casel being the vampire that killed Fia's uncle many years ago. Before leaving, though, Timothy picks up the mask of Steingirder. They use the Deep Tram, a service run by a dwarf from the Underdark that allows someone to travel vast expanses of Wolfguard quite quickly. And eventually the episode ends with the party overlooking the village of Pinewood, as a gargoyle flies overhead and lands in the darkened town in the middle of the Deadlands. Let me also put this above the screen. I'll put this ahead of the screen. Episode 53 opens with the party deciding how they're going to approach into Pinewood to go after Casel. They decide to take the frontal approach, going through the main door and telling the people there that they are in fact allies of Casel. They sneak through the town, finding sickly people, a great ghoulish giant, and ghouls as guards. They pass through, sneaking into the castle. They fight a captain of the guard, a ghoul, and kill him. Fabia slips down into the basement as the others go upstairs and find Fia's adopted mother, Ezra, in one of the rooms, living in rather decent comfort. They think little of it and bring her downstairs to try and escape from the castle before Casel can arrive back. But there, in the front entrance of the castle, Casel stands there, angered by their presence, before his face softens and he notices Fia. He calls out to her, revealing her real name, Violet, and revealing himself to be her father. Episode 54 picks up with that discussion. Fia and Casel discuss their past. Casel tells Fia of how he was turned into a vampire, against his will, by someone in southern Wolfguard, near the cradle by the sea. He accidentally killed her blood mother, her real mother, on his first vampiric outbreak. She was taken away by her uncle, who wanted to protect Fia, along with a young girl called Martyr, who was to be trained to join the Soldiers of Sunrise as a sorceress. When Casel finally tracked down and found Fia in the pirate home of Pennytown, he fought the uncle, only to have Martyr come in and kill him. Still a young girl, 15, 16 years old. She hoped Casel would reward her with vampirism. She wanted to live forever. Casel left Fia, scared he would be unable to take care of her, and left with Martyr instead, though he never did change her. He revealed that later, Martyr, left to be changed by the one that Casel was changed by all those years ago. He also revealed Pinewood to be a sanctuary for the sick. A last attempt, if modern medicine doesn't cure the ailments of sickly people, to come there and seek refuge. Some would be turned into vampires or ghouls, as best he could do. He told the group of his doctor, who was living in the castle's dungeons. And meanwhile, down in the dungeons, Fabia had discovered the doctor herself, and also a creature in an obsidian cage. Sorry, I always say obsidian, adamantine cage. A shadowy creature that writhed in it, eldritch in its design. Fabia had not heard the revelations upstairs, and assumed these to be evil. So she unleashed the monster, for it to consume and kill the doctor. Before heading upstairs, the group fought it, and Timothy quickly banished it back to its shadow realm. Before leaving, the group learned of a book named Eye of Newt and Tongue of Bard. It was said to have the directions to get them to Abatha, the Hagmother. So, they knew that the illithid Uroth and his wizard companion were at a local, abandoned necromancer's tower, and they had recently gone after the book themselves. So the group set out in pursuit. Episode 55, the group ran into some Waxels right at the beginning. Candlefolk, who helped guide them to the tower. Near the tower, they encountered more of the shadowy creatures, similar to the eldritch one they'd sent back before, and fought their way, bursting through a bubble to enter the tower itself, seeing a ritual at the top of it. Someone was up there casting magic, and they quickly discovered that it was chronomancy. As they ascended the tower, they came across the necromancer's first ever undead, a skeletal head named Jen, and they brought it with them. Episode 56, after a series of puzzles, all related to time, the party finally made it to the top of the necromancer's tower and confronted the one casting the ritual. It was one of the wizards serving Magnathor, the one who had come through the portal with Uroth. The illithid had already left though. They were too late. So they battled the wizard, and even as she shunted them to a potential past, one where they did not kill the Crothic Queen, but instead it had overtaken Carburn and infested the entire area. And then to a potential future, one where the devils were invading all of Valreath, and a ritual was being performed by the incubus that they had met in Advent. They battled their way through, defeating both potential past and future, and defeating the creature, the wizard. As the battle went on, she started to change her form into a massive fleshy amalgamation. Her skin reverted outward. And upon killing her, she broke off a piece of herself, declaring that they won't defeat her as she would go into the past, and she sent herself through a portal. What she did not know is the portal would arrive back by a broken tower a couple weeks ago in the past, right in front of the group, as they escorted a Goliath back to their home. Time had a sense of humour. Episode 57 had the group exploring the remaining section of the Necromancer's Tower. They found some rewards waiting for them. A gift from time itself. Timothy had drawn a card from the deck, the Knight card. He learned that someone was travelling towards him to serve him. From a mirror, time had sped up that departure. An automaton named Aaron stepped through the mirror and joined the party. But also, Saphira was rewarded into a gift of her own. The mirror for Saphira, and time's gift to her, was to be sent back to the past to right her wrongs. To the moment where a great beast that she lured back to her town by accident as a child was looming over her father, an axe embedded into it. She grabbed her own axe, stepped through, nodded to the party, and went to save her father as the portal closed. The group raised a toast to Saphira as she left the party for good. They discovered the book, The Eye of Newt and Tongue of Bard, and the adventurers set out in search of the three hags in the book, the daughters of Abatha, the Hagmother. Glinwort was the first of them, a hag that lived at the bottom of Lake Deneth. On the way there, they discovered from Zalfel, the devil from Advent, that the item he had entrusted them was in fact one of the near ascended, the next in line to become a god back during the era of the Godforged. It was her decaying hand, preserved in this tiny obsidian box. But the group did not have the artifact anymore, because they had put it in their newly acquired roadside bag of holding. A nail with screaming faces across it was left in its place. The nail of the bagman. The group had essentially created a new god. The bagman had consumed the god's hand. Zalfar went to deal with that. During such time, they also learned that Aaron, their new automaton partner and member of the group, had memories of Zalfar and had another voice located inside him. One that connected back to the first time Zalfar arrived in Advent during the fall of the entire kingdom. When the group arrived at the lake, they found Glinwort. She informed them that the words they were looking for were at the bottom of the lake, and they must descend downward to it. Fear cast water breathing on them, and they dove into the water, only to clash with Sahuagin and a great dragon eel guarding the cave. Episode 58 started with the battle against those creatures underwater. They fought their way through and made themselves into the cave where Glinwort was waiting. They read the words on the wall and found the first set of instructions to get through the Fool's Marsh. Glinwort desired a friend, so the group decided to leave Jen, the skeletal, rather rude head, with her, which she accepted. They then traversed the lake and found themselves in a town named Warmth, on the edge of the snowier, colder region of Wolfgard, in the north. A Hogboard guide named Og took them toward the second hag's residence. Along the way, Skold informed the group that they should visit the giants in the mountain nearby. They were said to be wise and could have answers for his giant. Episode 59. The group runs into Iridis, the druid bosun, from their ship. She had found others of her kind and was attempting to restore Wolfgard to its former glory by regrowing the forests nearby. They climbed the mountain, led by their guide, and met with the giants that resided there. One Cloud and one Frost. They learned the third of the giants was the fire giant that they had met back in the Krathic Caves many, many episodes ago. They also ran into Tyrus and Tyra, the twins from Purehelm that they had on their boat previously, that were kind of expelled from their boat. They were both set to be lunch to the giants, as they had rather rudely awakened them. They saved them from their fate and sent them off on their way. The giants told the group secrets of old. They learned that the Godforged were all once fire giants, or at least the closest resemblance to a fire giant. They also informed Skold that the belt he had received was one of a king, and he would have a claim to becoming king of all the Krigven, if he so wished it. Before leaving, Skold befriended a great white-feathered rock named Akthaliok, a friend to the giants who lived in the mountain above. He would have a favour from him to call him into battle at a time of his choosing. They set out toward the cave of Ungra, the Anis Hag, declaring their fears, and entered the cave. Episode 60. The group meet Ungra, the Anis Hag, the devourer of fears, and shared a drink with her. She feeds off fear and desired them all to sacrifice something for her to give the words to them. They dropped several sentimental items into a great pit in the middle. They made deals with the hag doing this, but at the last moment, Ungra, her eyes turned black, and she struck out at the party, betraying them. She had made a deal of her own, one with Uroth. He'd passed through there recently, searching for the words. The Anis Hag had blamed her mother, the Hag Mother, for the death of one of her sisters, and had joined forces with Magnathor. The group killed her, but discovered that the drink they had drank before, the one offered by the Hag, was actually infected with the Illithid tadpoles. Timothy, Fear, and Basil were now all infected. They found the words they needed in the cave and set out toward the Green Hag in hopes that she might have a cure. Episode 61. They found the Green Hag, Marigold, in the south, by travelling down towards Byswamp. She lived near the Fool's Marsh. They found her injured, holding back worms trying to escape to her brain to infect her. Uroth had been there. She held them off and told them how to conjure up a cure. They brewed it, saving her, Timothy, Fear, and Basil from the turn, and learnt the recipe. She provided the group with the words, the final instructions that would help them get to Abathar. but said that they were hot on the tails of Ulroth, and he was only there a few days ago. They set out, following the instructions through the deadly marsh, fighting all manner of creature to finally arrive at the entrance to Abatha's glade. And when they arrived, they discovered that Ulroth had actually been there already. As she turned, and the huge, immensely powerful Hag Mother Abatha eyes turned to black. Episode 62 started with a fight. They held off Abatha, trying to conjure up and use their wits to brew the potion that might save her. And they did. And just in time for Ulroth to arrive, frustrated that they kept on his heel the entire time, he brought in with him several infected minions, and the entirety of them had a battle in Abatha's glade. But with her help, they dispatched both Ulroth and all of his creatures. The second of Magnathor's inner circle was now dead. Abatha rewarded the group with a flying broom, a lot of information about the world, some other items, and a recipe book as well. She told them that on Mythis had captured them years ago with her aid, and that his plan was to become a god. She also informed them that he had already gotten his armor. He would be invulnerable with it. They would need to find his weakness. Episode 63. The adventurers went back to Tithmor, the first town they arrived in, and went toward Cadven's magic shop to see his updated stock. There, they found Cadven arguing with a Lockavat, a penguin person named Adderward. Apparently, the Lockavat had accidentally broken the entrance to the shop and a connected portal to Fjordhelm. He couldn't return home with that broken, and his lightning pole arm was the cause. The group invite Adderward to join them until the shop is repaired and he can return home himself. He accepts, and Tomato joins the party. They reconvene with the Scarlet Whistle crew and return home to Old Blue's estate. They find the soldiers of Sunrise had set up their foundations for their outpost there, as agreed upon previously. Inside the estate, Fia placed her hand on Fabia's mysterious gem, the one that allows her to turn invisible that she had stolen before joining the party. Fia's arm tattoo ruptured and grew across her arm. She ignited the blood within her, and her heritage as a descendant of the great red dragon that had once conquered all of Velreath, Rathamat, the Great, had awoken. Fia gained her legacy item. Episode 64 started at the estate of Old Blue. The party discussed what their next move should be, and together they agreed they needed to investigate Cradle by the Sea. Recently, Fia had learned that her blood mother was down there, but that couldn't be, as she knew her to be dead. So they took the Scarlet Whistle and landed in the port. The cradle was named for its great hall that hung from the great chains attached to jutting natural rocks from the water. 60 or so feet ascended into the air. The only way to access it would be through flight or up a long, almost skiing lift that you would go in a robot to get up there. It had several cannons, some pointed out to the sea as a defense, and others aiming toward the town itself. The town itself was quiet, and only one creepy robed dockmaster approached the group. Not getting through to him, Skull decided to improvise and knock him out and stash him on the ship. They told the Scarlet Whistle to leave and went into the town where they learned the townsfolk had been manipulated into believing they were at war with the soldiers of Sunrise. They found vampiric elements to the town and realized they had been consumed, or at least charmed. In the distance they heard cannon fire and saw as the Scarlet Whistle was being fired upon by both the hall and any of the town's defences, cannons raining down upon it. It ran aground on the beaches nearby. The group split into different paths. Fia, Timothy, and Basil flew towards the ship, discovering Duty, the cook, and Lug, the helmsman. Both were two of the several dead on the ship's shore. Skuld and Adderward, though thought to be natural enemies as Krigven often eat Lockavat, fought together against several guards and a couple of vampires, rushing towards the ship, and Fabia stayed back in the town to distract people and slow down their response. Episode 65, the party gathered up and pulled the dead from the shoreline and assessed the situation. They looked at the damage of the Scarlet Whistle and realized that the ship would need some serious repairs to get back off the ground. Fabia found that an army of soldiers had been moving towards the group, 70 or so strong, with a giant bat rider known as the Huntsman at their lead. The party hid away the Scarlet Whistle crew and distracted the soldiers elsewhere. The huntsman arrived early, ahead of his force. And before fighting, Fia discovered that it was Martyr, her childhood unrelated sister, or so they went by, that was controlling the shots in Cradle by the Sea. She had gotten her wish. She was a vampire. Before fighting the huntsman, Skuld called in a favour to Acthaliok. The great white rock appeared through a portal in the sky and joined the fray. Episode 66, the group fought and killed the huntsman, and waited for the army to arrive and intimidated, scaring and breaking their ranks, forcing them to rush back to their town. They said their goodbyes to Acthaliok as he flew back northward and discussed their strategy. At the Scarlet Camp, Timothy entered into a resurrection ritual and brought Lug back, resurrecting him. The group then decided to go at nightfall, flying up to the tower, the hall, hanging, the cradle itself. They dodged cannon flyers, Skuld went on the broomstick, and landed in the dock, cutting off the wire that would allow reinforcements to travel up to the cradle. There, they were face to face with a butcher. Episode 67 started with the group fighting their way up the cradle, all the way to Martyr. But they decided not to give Martyr time to speak, knowing that her charm effects might be too strong. They burst into the hall and began fighting her without warning. Her several Gaulish guards, knights, and several other guards from the town fought back. Count Fairfax was sat in his lord's chair, his mind entirely charmed and overtaken by Martyr. The group freed him during the fight. Martyr fought hard and even desperately attempted to drop the cradle from the sky by trying to break the chains that held it upward. The group prevented her. In a desperate attempt to win, she consumed phoenix blood, and her abilities morphed her into a fiery version of herself. Above the throne, pierced against the ceiling, was a winged Aasimar with teal skin, a captive of Martyr. Episode 68. Fabia freed the teal Aasimar who joined the battle. He helped fight back the knights. He'd been a bodyguard to Fairfax, but was captured before their arrival. They fought against Martyr, and with quick thinking, Adderward dragged her out of the window and into the water below, dropping her from the sky. The only two ways to kill a vampire, sunlight and running water. She managed to get to the shore, burning from the water, clinging to her life only barely, and her form was destroyed. Her mist tried to escape to get back to her coffin so that she could resurrect, when Timothy pushed a wave of water to consume her on the beach. Martyr, the vampire, was no more. Fia had her revenge. Back in the cradle, Fairfax rudely thanked the party, offered them out some diamonds and a new ship, a brigantine, to replace the Scarlet Whistle. They would take pieces from the Scarlet Whistle and put it onto the brigantine to make it feel more like home. And they took the diamonds to try and resurrect the remaining crew. Over the next few days, the ship was designed and built up and the crew was moved towards it. The party helped Cradle by the Sea return to its humanity and restore it. And Timothy revived Duty, the cook, among another one of the Scarlet crew members. Adderward revealed that he really needed to get home to Fjordhelm to make sure his people were safe. He was duty-bound to protect them. And since the portal was destroyed, he was worried for their safety. The party also had vested interest in Fjordhelm, knowing that Magnathor's other Inner Circle members would be up there. So, the party set sail on their newly upgraded ship, the better, the bigger Scarlet Whistle, for the cold and distant shores of Fjordhelm. And so ended Act 3. And there, you are up to date with Godforged. Go and watch the new episodes every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. GMT. Thank you very much.